Good morning and welcome to St. Peter's Episcopal Church in downtown Salisbury, Maryland. I'm Daniel Cherrix, Director of Music. This is part of our Lenten Musical Moment series that we're doing. And today I have the great pleasure of welcoming a very talented, extremely talented, and musical violinist, Bobby Thamert. And so Bobby and I will play a piece for you, and we'll get to talk a little bit and learn more about Bobby's background and about the piece we're going to play, as well as a little bit about the violins and violin bows. So without further ado, Bobby Thamert, come on out here. And yeah, come on. And pick up that fancy microphone and have a seat. Thank you for being here, number one. Oh, speak a little bit more into that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We want them to hear you. Now we know you're we're having trouble with the what you call it. I'll be right back. Thank you all for being patient. We had technical difficulties yet again. Bobby, thank you for being here. I forget where we were before. We were so rudely interrupted by incooperative equipment.
We gotten as far as you saying thank you, and I said you're welcome.
Well, thank you again. I'm glad you're here. We know you are a fabulous violinist. We've heard you play Christmas Eve. You were the ringleader of a string quartet You put it. In fact, you were sort of our string quartet broker. I'll call you because you organized that entire thing, which was beautiful, to say the least.
Thank you.
And I hope that we'll see you all again in that is 2021, this year, this Christmas. And I bet people are curious. So we've seen you play violin, but what about Bobby? How did Bobby get to the violin? How did Bobby get to the Eastern Shore? I'd like to know a little bit about your childhood, your education, your career. That's a lot to cover. So let's start with Bobby learning music and how Bobby came to the violin.
Okay, well, my grandparents were both musicians. My grandmother was a pianist, organist, church choir director. My grandfather was a violinist in the Pittsburgh Symphony, and he taught music in the Pittsburgh Music Institute. So my sister and I, when we got to about the right age, were asked what we would like to play, and one could play piano, one could play violin. My sister, being older, got the first choice, and she chose the piano.
So you couldn't both do the same thing. That wasn't going to be an option.
It was just one. So my sister did piano,
Okay.
and so I started the violin.
All right. So you grew up in Pittsburgh. Is that true?
North of Pittsburgh, just a little town called Cheswick.
Cheswick.
Wick.
So you go through, what time, how old were you when you started that?
Probably 7 or 8.
So right with the violin immediately. I guess I think most people start maybe with piano and then go to something else, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe if I had started piano, I would have been a better student. I don't know. Reading music better, maybe. I don't know.
I know. It didn't help me. So you go through high school studying with your grandfather, and I want to come back to your grandparents in a minute. So after high school, what happens?
I went to college, and I was going to major in history because I liked history. And then at the last minute, I decided, no, I don't think I'll have any fun with history. I think I'm going to switch to music, and they let me.
Good.
Right on the spot, so I switched to music education.
With a focus with your applied instrument as violin, I guess.
Correct.
Now, I'm just curious, did they make you sing in any choirs while you were there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you were a music student, music ed, you had to learn every instrument, take choir, theory, conducting. So you would take 1 semester on brass, one semester woodwinds, percussion, etc. Yeah.
So you can play all those, or
Well, I wouldn't say play. You know enough about them, how to finger and how to get the tone, and then you had to take piano the whole time.
And conducting.
And conducting, yes.
2 of our choral scholars are music ed majors, as is you, as a matter of fact. Which college was this? You didn't tell us.
At Clarion in Pennsylvania.
Okay. So did you? Your goal is to teach music. Did you teach music in Pennsylvania before teaching music? People may not know you were a music educator in Wacomico County for how many years?
37.
Wow.
In Wacomico Public Schools.
Right.
Yeah.
And before those 37 years, were you teaching in Pennsylvania?
No.
Oh, so you mean you got out of college and came right here?
Correct.
Really? Mm-hmm. So tell me the story of how that. Tell me about your interview from Wacomico County Schools.
Okay. Well, Mr. Middleton, his job was to go around and recruit new teachers, and he would go to a lot of the Pennsylvania colleges to interview and get teachers, and he was interviewing for, I'm not sure which position it was, but the student he was interviewing was not what he needed. He didn't need a band teacher at that time, but he said, but I do need a string teacher. So the guy gave Mr. Middleton my name, and he interviewed me and just pretty much asked me some questions, and then said, well, we want you to come to an interview in Salisbury.
And you thought, where?
Yeah, where? Yeah. Yeah. So I just remember it was summertime, and I just remember, I had no idea about this humidity here. Or
Oh, really?
anything. Yeah. We didn't have humidity where I was, so I had this long sleeve brown dress on. It was as hot as could be, and I got to Salisbury, and it was like 98 degrees.
And humid.
And humid, yes. But anyways, I came to the Board of Ed to get my interview, and sat down, and the head guy, Royd Mahaffey was his name, came in, and I thought, oh boy, I'm not a very good interviewer. So I was kind of worried, but he came in and he looked at me and said, yep, she's okay. That was it.
Now, can you read, do you know
No,
bass clef,
nothing.
treble clef?
Nothing, just, she's okay.
She's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So I got the job.
good. I'm glad.
That was
because-
back in the old days before you had to, have extensive interviews and fill out questionnaires and all.
Do you mind telling me what year that was? I guess we could do the math, but
1973.
1973. I love it. So we kind of glossed over, we talked about you mentioned your grandparents, but I'd like to go a little bit further because they're pretty incredible people. You come from a artistic, that your maternal side of the family is extremely artistic. Your mother
Correct.
was an artist.
Correct.
Tell us about your grandparents. Tell us more because I think people would find it fascinating.
Okay. My grandmother wanted to be a concert pianist as she grew up, so she just practiced and practiced.
And she was English,
She was English,
like from England.
yes.
Yeah.
And she went to, I'm pretty sure it was the camps in the summer. I think it was maybe possibly Interlochen. If they had it, then it was one of those prestigious. She would go every summer. And my grandfather grew up in the same area around Apollo, Vandergrift, Pennsylvania, and his father was a country fiddler, played for like square dances, and so my grandfather picked up the violin at a young age, and I guess back then you practiced because there was no TV, there was no anything else, so he practiced all the time, and she became his accompanist.
Okay, that's how they met then.
That's how they met, yes.
And then he's the first violinist for the Pittsburgh
He was
Symphony
in,
Orchestra.
Yeah, he was in the Pittsburgh Symphony, and he played in a famous string quartet.
And then he organized a symphony orchestra of his
Right,
own, 80
right.
some odd players, where he's
Right.
the conductor. Is this
Right,
true?
Correct.
Yeah. And your grandmother was such a fine pianist that if someone came to Pittsburgh, is this right? And their accompanist flaked out, got sick, whatever, she
could fill in. Yeah,
she was the person who stepped in at the last minute.
Particularly the violinist, because she knew all the violin
Rep,
repertoire.
all that
Yeah.
repertoire. What kind of church was she organist, choir master with?
Methodist.
Methodist.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why you're across the street, not over here. Much to our chagrin. All right, so you inherited something from I want you to tell us about something very special that you inherited from your grandfather.
Okay, he gave me one of his very fine bows. It was made by Vorin, I'm not really sure the pronunciation. It was made in France, probably 1850, 1860.
Okay.
And these were very, very fine bows, and people really would like, not like Stradivarius violins, but close to it. They're very expensive, and I was just looking, because Daniel said he was going to ask me questions about it. They range today from $30,000, and I saw one of the viola ones on the internet for, I think it was $95,000.
For the bow,
Just
not for a violin,
this is
just
for
the bow
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, most
But
people think bows are probably $20, but no.
$30,000 at minimum for the bow. Now, are you going to use? Yeah, you used that Christmas Eve, didn't you?
Yes, but I used to use it before I knew it was worth $30,000. I used to be out on the beach playing for weddings using it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, put this away. I'm going to use that cheaper bow.
Yeah. So what is the cheaper bow? Several hundred?
Probably the cheaper one that I have is probably about $600.
Okay. Neat. Do you have, I'm just curious, a favorite era of music, a favorite composer, a favorite piece within an era? People ask me that, and I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer for it personally, but maybe you do.
I like romantic style of music where you can put your emotion or
Uh-huh.
into it rather than
Tick, 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 tick.
sounding like a sewing machine. And,
I know what you mean.
yeah.
Well, you do not sound like a sewing machine when you play, even when you play the tick, tick, baroque
Okay.
kind of stuff. So that explains perhaps the choice of music today. Your favorite is Romantic Era, lush, beautiful,
Right.
expression, not expressionistic, but expressive. So the piece we're going to play today together is called Adoration by Felix
Borowski.
Borowski?
Right, and that was something that I played with my grandfather way back.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes.
Do you know much about Felix?
I don't know a whole lot. He wasn't one of the most famous
No.
composers. I looked him up. He wrote, of course, Adoration, which at that time, and it's still, that's one of the favorite violin pieces, but he also wrote 2 or 3 organ pieces, a couple of string orchestra pieces, and that's about it. And he was a professor at a college, and he did lectures and had some affiliation with the Chicago Symphony as far as not playing, but managing or some job like that.
Okay. Do you know which what his dates are? Any birth, death? Okay, that's okay. I'm going to say it's late 1800s, early 1900s, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe.
Mhm.
Okay, we could. I'm sure if we're not right, we'll be corrected. You know how the internet is. Okay, so shall we play?
Sure.
Let's do it. So here we go. Adoration by Felix Borowski.